your everyday life for a second. Over the last few years, we've all been hit by this undeniable reality. Prices everywhere are going up. Whether we're talking about food, housing, or transportation, basically, the cost of just living your life has been marching upwards. It's this universal experience, and man, I know you're feeling it. So today, in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what's happening to us on a daily basis.
Let's start with groceries, right? Because honestly, this is where the pain hits the most often. You're buying the exact same stuff you bought a year ago, your usual carton of eggs, a loaf of bread. You haven't changed your diet. You definitely aren't loading up on luxury items, but the total on that receipt, it's climbing at a rate we literally haven't seen in decades. And, to add a little insult to injury, thanks to shrinkflation, that box of cereal you just paid way more for actually has fewer flakes in it than it did last year.
And then you hit the gas station. Watching those numbers tick up on the pump isn't just annoying, it's a massive structural drain on your household budget. Every single time you fill up just to get to work or drop the kids off, a bigger chunk of your paycheck is instantly vaporized. And the crazy part? This is heavily driven by global energy bottlenecks and supply dynamics that you and I have absolutely zero control over. But then comes the biggest blow of the whole shebang: housing. Rent and mortgage costs have just surged. When you stack up the grocery bill, the fuel costs, and the absolute premium required just to keep a roof over your head, you're left with this distinct, undeniable feeling. The feeling that absolutely everything is just way more expensive than ever before. Which brings us to the ultimate question. Why? I mean, that one word totally sums up the collective frustration of millions of people right now. It really feels like the money you work so hard to earn just doesn't stretch as far anymore. It's almost like this invisible hand is reaching right into your bank account and swiping a little bit of your purchasing power every single day. But what if this isn't random? Seriously, take a second and really think about that. What if there's a much, much bigger reason behind all these everyday struggles? What if this isn't just, bad luck or corporate greed or some temporary glitch in the system? What if it's actually a mechanical output of the macroeconomic system itself? Well, we all know the usual suspect here: inflation. But we aren't just talking about the textbook definition of money losing value. We are looking at a mechanical, historical shift in the global economy. This goes way beyond a standard business cycle. This isn't just some buzzword being thrown around on financial news networks. It is a structural reality playing out in our global economy right under our noses.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it requires a complete flip in your perspective. We instinctively look around and think prices are going up, right? And we immediately blame the grocer or the gas station. But the deeper reality, the actual mechanical truth of the situation, is currency debasement. Think about it. The apple you buy at the store hasn't fundamentally changed. It's exactly the same apple. It's the tool you use to measure its value that's broken.
Yes, your money is literally shrinking in utility. I really want to hammer home this critical perspective shift because honestly, it changes everything. To put this into perspective, a dollar today buys what roughly 80 cents bought just a few short years ago. Once you fully grasp this diagnosis of the economic squeeze, you stop obsessing over the price tags and you start looking at the currency itself. Okay, let's dive into this and look at the actual root causes driving this whole phenomenon. There are two massive invisible forces at play here. First up is monetary policy. Through mechanisms like quantitative easing, central banks around the world have historically expanded the M2 money supply at truly unprecedented rates during economic slowdowns. Basically, they pump liquidity into the system. But the catch is just basic math. Drastically increasing the supply of currency waters down the value of every existing dollar. And at the exact same time, we face force number two: massive supply chain disruptions, geopolitical conflicts, and shifting global trade routes. So you've got this vastly expanded, weaker currency chasing a much more restricted, more expensive pool of physical goods. It is literally a perfect macroeconomic storm. And all of this translates into a pretty brutal daily reality: the wage price spiral. For the vast majority of us, your income remains pretty much flat. It's static, or hey, maybe you get a tiny incremental bump at the end of the year that doesn't even come close to matching the official inflation rates. Meanwhile, the cost of living just keeps compounding. So the crucial takeaway here is that while you are working just as hard as ever, the math is actively working against you. That is exactly why it constantly feels like you're falling behind. And you know what the hardest truth about all of this is? This isn't a glitch that just fixes itself overnight. The gears of sticky inflation and the massive lag time of monetary policy mean we are dealing with a deeply ingrained systemic issue. Look,
When trillions of dollars are injected into the global economy, it takes years for that capital to fully wash through the system. This is a long-term reality of the economic machine we're living inside of. It's definitely not a storm that's just going to blow over by next Tuesday.
Which naturally leads us to the absolute most important question of this entire explainer. How do you actually survive in a system where money loses value every single year? This isn't just theoretical stuff anymore. This is about completely shifting your mindset. You can't afford to just be a passive victim of inflation anymore. You have to become an active strategist. If the system is mathematically designed so that your money shrinks by default, well, standing still is the exact same thing as moving backwards.
You have to find a way to stay ahead. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. In a system that is fundamentally designed to shrink the value of your dollar, what active moves are you going to make today so that your money isn't left behind tomorrow?